Hey, you're on the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. It is Sunday. It's the 21st of October, 2018. I wanted to share a little bit about the social chaos that's going on in our world. We're being overwhelmed, and you know it as well as I do, with stories and news items regarding the ownership and the use of guns in America. We're being led to accept the notion that all of this is an epidemic. Now, if we simply believe everything we see and hear from the mainstream news outlets, we might be inclined to be fearful, to be fearful of even our neighbors. We don't know who these people are that live right next door to us. Look at the news stories that come out about people and neighborhoods and things. This week we were treated to actual statistics, and it was shocking. We'll talk about that just a little bit later on. But do you remember also the limo accident in upstate New York just a few weeks ago? A tragic, unnecessary, overwhelming to the families kind of an event. Something you just couldn't get your head around. Well, apparently there's more to that story than meets the eye. It's a story that involves international intrigue. It has U.S. government involvement and assassinations. What really was going on here? It's our world. And we need to know, don't we? Also in the news this week, we find out that our president is on the verge. He has already made plans to notify Russia this week that the United States is preparing to pull out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. New York Times is reporting this. U.S. officials, foreign diplomats are talking about it. What's going on? Well, the White House National Security Advisor, John Bolton, is taking a trip to Russia this week. He's going to tell the folks over there that they've been violating this treaty for years. They know that. We've known that. But apparently now the U.S. government has limits as to how far a nation can go spitting in our face before we do something. Representative Eliot Engel of New York, a ranking Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said withdrawing from the INF Treaty before adequately consulting our allies and exploring all diplomatic avenues to resolve Russia's violations jeopardizes American and European security. What Russia's doing doesn't, but what we do will. That's the old way. The old way is drag your feet, threaten, just don't do anything. President Reagan concluded this treaty to reduce the risk of war in Europe, Mr. Engel said. He went on to say we owe it to our allies and to the American people to do everything we can to bring Russia back into compliance, back into the fold. A quick withdrawal will simply be a win for Russia, and it will clear the way for our chief adversary to expand its missile arsenal. Reality? The U.S. has been arguing for years that Russia is in violation of the treaty by deploying tactical nuclear weapons to threaten former Soviet-controlled countries that are now friendly with the West. Complaints that have fallen on deaf ears, largely because the U.S. has been the paper tiger during the last 4 presidential terms. These are the issues that are coloring our life. Getting down into the depths of them is an important part. Did you know that there are 80 million gun owners in America? Now you know why there are so many accidental deaths with guns. 1,500 people die every year from accidental gunshot. There are 700,000 physicians in America, and 120,000 people die from accidental deaths by physicians. Did you see it? 80 million gun owners, who knows how many guns, 1,500 deaths, accidental gunshot. 700,000 physicians, 120,000 people die at their hands. Death by physician, 0.171%. Death by gun, 0.0000188%. And all this is courtesy of the FBI. This means that doctors are 9,000 times more dangerous than a gun. And by the way, not everybody has one. But everybody has a doctor, or will. And out of concern for the public, statistics on lawyers have been deliberately left out. You see it? Why is it so many other people can't see this or won't? And part is due to misinformation, false information, no information. You do know that millennials only know what social media tells them, right? If it doesn't show up on their Facebook and their Twitters and their other thingies on their, they don't know what's going on. You do realize mainstream media has been completely co-opted by anti-Christian, anti-American, anti-freedom elements, right? You watch television, you can see that. I know. You hear people like me say this stuff, and you write them off as kooks. Well, think about it. 70 plus years of liberal educational philosophy beginning in kindergarten. 60 plus years of deliberate dumbing down of our educational system. 60 plus years of liberal media feeding us propaganda, slanted news, subtly at first, no more. 60 plus years of legalizing drugs. Marijuana is now the least dangerous. 60 plus years of deliberate legalizing of our higher education, liberalizing of our higher education system. Add to this the power of such things as the New York Times bestseller list. You do know the books that make it to the top of that list are there not because of book sales. They'll tell you that it is, but they're there by fiat. Somebody has decided. Some of the most popular books on that list are on that list the week, sometimes days before they're actually released. Meaning the popularity is not due to sales. It may be due to the sales from publishers to the outlets in hopes, but it's mostly by committee. And who's on this committee? Who's voting what is the most popular book? It isn't us. What this means is the American public has been scammed for the last 50 or 60 years by people we don't even see and we don't know. Remember the limo accident in upstate New York? What do you know about that? Apparently most of us live in a very sheltered world. We only know what the media tells us. Here's the story. The family of the limo driver believes he was given an unsafe vehicle. His widow said he had expressed concerns about the vehicles several times. She heard him on the phone with the owner. But, according to her, he trusted the company. Isn't that just like a man? She wouldn't have done that. On that fateful day, a large party of young adults had chartered a small bus to take them to dinner. And other things, I guess. But the bus broke down, and this stretch limo was brought in as a substitute. One of the passengers apparently texted from inside the limo just before the accident saying they had been in one vehicle which broke down and transferred to this one, and it was in terrible condition. There were even loud noises coming from the engine. Now we're focused on the road conditions and the attention factor of the driver. You've seen a picture of it. The accident occurred at a T intersection with the limo arriving, it's upstate New York, arriving presumably coming downhill to a stop sign. Only it didn't stop. It went across that road, plowed through a gully, and up an incline onto a parking lot of a business. I think it was a restaurant. Killing 2 pedestrians in the process in the parking lot and everybody in the vehicle. When people showed up, the vehicle was just a large piece of debris, and everybody was dead. Sad. But now comes a backstory. The company owner is a Pakistani immigrant, a man who has been back in Pakistan for a while for what are called health reasons. The operator of the company is 28-year-old Nauman Hussain. 4 days after the accident, his son was picked up in a traffic stop. The vehicle was filled with packed luggage, and he was arrested, charged with negligent homicide for the limo wreck. He pleaded not guilty. He paid a $150,000 bond, and he left. His lawyer said he was feeling unsafe in his home after receiving death threats. He was all part and parcel of this thing. Daddy owns the company. So who is this guy that owns this company? He is apparently a 60-year-old whose latest address is in New York in a small hotel and with some motel units attached. I mean, the guy owns all this. He's got all this money. He's living in a motel. The manager of the hotel says the actual owner lives in Dubai. I mean, it's complicated. While the Pakistani guy is in Pakistan for his health, his 2 sons are living in a mansion outside of Albany, and neighbors reported seeing stretch limos and young Russian girls coming and going until the 2 men abruptly moved out just a few days after this limo accident. In Pakistan, where the owner apparently used to live, he'd been accused of murder twice. To get out of a 3rd arrest, the father bribed the police. He got into this country in 1994 after going through Russia, Mexico, and finally El Paso, Texas. He applied for political asylum, wound up working for the DMV as a translator. He was then found to be in a scheme to take money from illegals to allow them to pass their driver's test to get a license. I guess he got fired. The FBI arrested him in 2002. He took a plea deal, which involved working as an informant. 4 years later, after filing bankruptcy, he came into some serious money, bought a hotel, went to work for the FBI at $96,000 a year to infiltrate mosques. He recruited 4 men to infiltrate a mosque in Newburgh, New York, involving plots to shoot down planes and blow up synagogues in the Bronx. You remember this accident occurred upstate New York. Those men were all convicted. Hussain also helped convict the imam of an Albany mosque, that's upstate New York, involved in a scheme to sell surface-to-air missiles to terrorists in Pakistan. Albany imam. Over time, questions were raised about his honesty in FBI reports, to say nothing of his financial dealings. He'd been involved in dozens of lawsuits in Albany County, including one by his attorney. And he's changed his name, the name of his businesses on occasion, and he has a lot of different addresses. This is not just simply a limousine that wasn't inspected properly. There's something going on here. It's very possible these people were just collateral damage. They were after this guy, wanted to do him harm, and they were willing to kill all these people to do it. That's the world we live in. It's not fun. It's wicked. And I don't tell you these stories because ooh, look, I want you to know how evil this world is. And I want you to know that what the Bible teaches us is that I'm like that. And so are you. That without the Lord Jesus Christ, my heart is desperately wicked, deceitful above all things, beyond anything anybody can comprehend. And I am capable of all of this and more. When we preach the gospel, it's not just, well, we want to get a lot of people in church. No, it's a life saver. Without it, you are on a downward trajectory. Not everybody ends up like that. Some people live very decent lives all through their years, but they don't have any relationship with God. And everything they've done that might be good, they get credit for, not God. And if at the end of your life God gets no credit, don't expect to spend time with Him in eternity. Not going to happen.